Well, I would say that maybe some of the recent ones have been a little more serious in that it seems that there were actual attempts. I've been getting the threats all along, but it's pretty definite that there was a plan to attempt to assassinate me in Marion, Alabama, a few days ago when I was there, and I happened to have been surrounded all the time by a number of people, which meant that I never became a clear target. In Los Angeles, there was actually a situation where 14 pounds of dynamite was stolen, and there was some feeling that this was related to a threat to blow up one or two of the buildings where I was speaking in Los Angeles. So I would say that they have become a little more serious in that there have been definite developments and definite attempts.
Well, where security is not being provided for you, have we any arrangements yourself?
No, not at all. I never even request security, police protection. If it's given, naturally, it isn't within my authority to turn it down.
Dr. King, there's some rather extraordinary security precautions all around here. What have you heard lately about the plot, any plot on your life or health or safety?
Well, I consistently get threats, particularly when we are in the midst of a very determined and intensified campaign as we are in Alabama at the present time. This is nothing new. I notice that the threats increase whenever we are in the midst of a campaign, and I have for the last few days, I would say for the last 2 weeks, had a number of anonymous threats, not only in Alabama, but even outside of Alabama. I was in Los Angeles just last week and had to undergo the same kind of maximum security because of threats that had been received out there. And we have heard of and received pretty authentic information concerning certain attempts or plots in the state of Alabama, so that I imagine the present security grows out of that. I mean, the security today, I didn't know about it, but I imagine it grows out of that.
When you say we, sir, do you mean the Southern Christian leadership, or do you mean the government or FBI?
Well, I mean the information has been given to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, some of my close associates in the conference.
Would you just have a seat, please? Reverend Young, Mr. King, this is going to be quite informal.
All right.
Gentlemen, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I don't have an opening statement, ladies and gentlemen, so you can just plunge right into the question. I never make any request, and I don't have any bodyguards, and I don't intend to have any. As a nonviolent leader, I do not feel that I should go around with bodyguards, so that I don't have any.
Dr. King, is there any thought that this might be an organized attempt, the one in Marion, the possibility of the Los Angeles incident?
I'm not sure. There are some who feel that it's pretty serious, but I'm not sure if this is just a development that grows as a result of violence being in the atmosphere now, or whether it's something that has much more serious possibilities. It is true that when the climate becomes filled with violence, it tends to encourage and suggest violence. And it may be that this is just the fanatical response of the lunatic fringe as a result of violence being in the atmosphere, and it may pass away. We just don't know.
Dr. King, do you have any plans to conduct a voter registration program in the state of Mississippi?
Yes, we do. However, it seems that Alabama will keep us pretty well tied up the rest of the spring, and it would have to be next fall before we can really move in the state of Mississippi. We are very hopeful about the possibility of getting a strong bill, that is a strong voter bill, and after getting that, we feel that we would have more strength and more backing to move into other situations. We hope to implement that certainly in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana, since these are the states that are resisting more than any of the other states on the whole question of voter registration.
Dr. King, you described the situation in Selma now, whether you feel there has been improvements since you began the drive, and what action you plan to take in the near future concerning Selma.
I would say that there has been some improvement in a sense. We do have a federal court order which has at least made it clear to the registrars that Negroes are denied and notoriously deprived of the right to vote. And I think this court order has at least pointed out the evil. On the other hand, I would not like to overestimate the improvement. We are still confronted with very difficult problems there because Sheriff Clark is determined to keep Negroes from voting, and he is abusing that court order and misusing it at every point to keep the number of Negro registered voters small and to slow up the process. Now we feel that it would be necessary to go back into court in order to clarify the order and in order to be sure that Sheriff Clark cannot be the Sheriff Clark cannot stand in the way of those who are seeking to register. In other words, the order itself will mean nothing until there is an order with great enforcement power restraining Sheriff James Clark, who intimidates, who harasses, and who stands in the way of Negroes trying to register every time they go down there. So we intend to continue our drive, and we will intensify our efforts in Selma as well as other counties throughout the Black Belt area of Alabama.
Reverend King, you say that the Alabama drive will last through until the spring. What degree of success can you realistically hope for at that time?
I think we'll have great success if we can get a bill. Frankly, I don't think we're going to have too much success in terms of actual tangible gains. That is, getting people actually registered in the Black Belt, as long as we have the present registrars there and as long as we have the present literacy tests. Until we can get federal registrars, we just aren't going to get more than a token number of Negroes registered in Alabama. In the Black Belt areas. We may in some of the big cities, but in the Black Belt areas, the resistance is very strong. But if we can get a strong bill guaranteeing the right to vote, improving on the 57, the 60, and the 1964 bills, I believe we can add thousands of people on the books in time for the 1966 election.
Dr. King, specifically, what would you want the voting bill to include?
Well, I think there are two or three things that I consider musts in this bill. Number one, are doing away with the literacy tests. These literacy tests serve only as stumbling blocks and only to set up evasive schemes for registrars. And I am absolutely convinced that it is a grave injustice for a state that has denied the Negro educational opportunities to now come along and demand literacy as a means of registration. So that we would like to see in this bill something that removes a literacy test. Secondly, there is a need for federal registrars appointed by and responsible to the president. And I think it's important to get that over, because the 1960 bill gives the court the right to appoint referees. The interesting thing is that in Marion, Alabama right now, we have a federal referee appointed by Judge Thomas, and he happens to be a man from Hale County, and he doesn't register any more Negroes than the registrar. So it must be someone appointed by and responsible to the president, because in states like Alabama and Mississippi, there are federal judges who are as segregationist forces as anybody else. Also, it's going to become even more difficult. Anyone knows the difficulty of guerrilla warfare, and I think the time has come for all of the involved nations to sit down at the peace table together and try to negotiate a settlement and neutralize the situation there in Vietnam.
Thank you, because he has to catch a plane.
President David, Dr. King, gentlemen.